Three.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the DVMUG evening Zoom meeting for Thursday, July 29th, 2021. Tonight's an experimental meeting to see if we can accommodate some of our members who are not available during the afternoons. And we're trying to see how this is received by those people. And maybe if the reception is good, we'll continue this. Otherwise, we'll try it another couple of times and see how it goes. So tonight, we're going to discuss the latest news. We're going to have our questions and answers. We're going to talk about the history of the DVMUG Christmas in July picnic, which this year falls in August. Duh. We're going to have latest updates. Do Apple's Airtags really work? 20 Mac tips and tricks, 10 Finder annoyances, Apple better fix them, or how to customize Apple's News app. So let's move on to questions and answers. I'm sorry, the Evening Mug Picnic. The picnic is back and it's going to be on August 18th. At the, what do they call it? The Sportsman's Lawn
Park, yes.
Sportsman's
The Hillside
Park
Complex.
in Rossmore. And of course, we're going to have details available to all of our members. But we thought it might be interesting to talk briefly about the history of the picnic. So put that date down. Come on. Doing it again. There we go. The DVMUG has never had meetings in December. So we started out having our Christmas meeting in July, and somebody some years ago thought, let's have a picnic instead and celebrate our Christmas for DVMUG in July. So of course this year, we're having our July meeting right now. So we're meeting in August. But of course, that throws out the possibility of the film competition that we've traditionally had in August. But because of the pandemic, we can't hold that this year. So everything's quiet. So we're going to do it in this August in Rossmore. So the picnic will be for all of our DVMUG members. And bring your grandkids if you want. They might be bored, but bring your favorite dish, salad, or dessert. The club's going to supply the meat, and we'll have our inestimable, delicious, wonderful chili beans from Ann that I never got last year because everybody got there first.
They always disappear first.
Yeah, those go first. Warning, warning. Danger, danger, Bill Robinson. So we'll have more details coming to tell you how to get there and when to be there. And I think if you haven't been there, you'll enjoy visiting this nice green oasis of
the information for the picnic has been in every week's MailChimp on Sunday for the last couple of weeks and will be. It's got the map, the time, the pictures from old picnics. It's all there and it's going to stay there to remind you every week.
Okay, moving on to the news. iOS 14.7 is out. iOS 15.5 is out. watchOS 7.6 is out. And iOS 14.7 mainly adds compatibility to the MagSafe function of the new Apple battery that's available, which we're going to talk about in a minute. It also allows the ability to combine Apple Card accounts. Remember, Tim talked about how everybody in the household could have access to the credit card and maintain their own credit rating, which is a good thing, especially for women who've traditionally not been included in those kinds of things. watchOS 7.6 adds 30 more regions for the electrocardiogram support. And as you'll recall, Apple promised that they would add regional participation in the electrocardiogram for the watch. And this is what they're doing. On Apple TV and HomePod, HBO shuts down. The Apple TV channel will no longer carry HBO Max. But that shouldn't deter you, because you can download the app on your streaming device and go to town. Now, this is I'm not going to show you the videos because they're a half an hour long, but I'd like you to check out visiting these places. This fellow in Germany took 4 Airtags and mailed them to Cupertino, North Korea, and trying to remember the other place. Darn if I can remember. And to Elon Musk. And he was able to track them as they traveled around the world. But he had an interesting experience with North Korea. It is really interesting to watch. And the upshot of it is that Tim Cook received his, and they wrote him a very nice letter back thanking him for participating in the experiment, and returned his AirTag to him. And you know how the new icons are all rounded on the corners? Well, the Apple stationery doesn't have square corners. It's rounded paper. So you'll probably find that long, but it is very interesting. So the links are there. And when we get this posted to YouTube, just click. Somebody got a question?
Oh, yeah.
Is there a question? Okay. So Q&A. Is there a good substitute for photos? I want an application that will let me make an album for each vacation within a travel folder. Also, I can't delete an album with a simple click of the delete button. I have to confess, I'm not a photo person, so those who use photos can better answer that than I. No answers?
I think you can delete a photo album with one click. You go up to the menu bar and say, do you want to delete this album? And you say,
Okay.
yeah.
You may be concerned about also deleting them out of the main library.
They
If you
won't
delete-
go away from the main library.
Right, but if you want to delete them out of the main library, as well as delete the album, I believe there's a modifier key. You
Oh,
just
that's
have to
different. I don't know about that.
Google it. I think it's the control key or the,
Yeah, one of them.
yeah.
Okay, is that person's here tonight? That was Carol.
It's my question.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only substitute I would recommend is Lightroom, and that's pretty high end and also expensive.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is it really depends on how deep you are into it. I mean, I'm a Lightroom user myself, and it's good. It's very useful if you shoot 20 or 30,000 pictures a year, as I used to, except for last year. But and it's very good. I mean, I'm just scratching the surface of what I can do with it, and I've been using it since version 1. But again, there's some cost involved. Adobe very much would like for you to sign on to their subscription program, though I think there might be a way that you can get it as a one-time purchase, but I'm not sure about that. But and the nice thing about about Lightroom is when you import pictures into your library, it doesn't suck them into some proprietary space like Photos does and like iPhoto used to. You basically tell it where you want the photos to go. I've got mine set up to where every time I import photos, it creates a folder that the name of the folder is the date of the import. and they're all in my pictures folder, so I can get to them anytime I want. So,
Okay, it's just that, I was goofing around with photos one day and albums, and I've got an album called an Untitled, and I can't figure out how to delete it. I suppose I could wait until I can think of another album and just rename it. But that's a
There's
small
ways to
issue.
delete your untitled album. You should actually just be able to delete it, but just Google it. How do I delete an album in Apple Photos?
Yeah,
That
I
should
think
be
I-
pretty
I think I did
straightforward.
Google it.
Know why you'd have a problem deleting an album.
that's a small issue. I have all these albums. I'd like to be able to access them on my phone, and
Everything
it's
you
really
do,
hard.
everything you do in photos shows up exactly the same on your iPad and your iPhone if you have photo
Should,
library
yeah.
syncing turns on.
Carol,
It's a
Okay.
mirror image.
I just tried loading photos, and if you right click on the name on the album, one of the options when the menu comes up is to delete the album. So you should be able to do that.
Oh, right click. Okay, that's
Yeah,
Good,
give that a
John.
try.
Don, thank you. Thanks, Don.
Sure.
Good.
good. Okay, so I should be able to access all my photos within folders and folders within folders on my
Absolutely.
iPhone.
That's the whole theory of the photo syncing is it's the same everywhere all the time.
All right.
As
You
long
just
as you
have
got
to have the
syncing turned on.
You
Well,
have to have
well-
the space on your iCloud Drive account to hold all your originals. So if you've got a lot of them, it can take a lot of space.
And you can have
Yeah, I
folders.
have
You can
I
have
have
folders
plenty of
inside
room
folders.
on.
The
Okay.
albums are not the same as folders.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think
So
albums count against your storage either. Because the pictures are in storage, the albums are free.
Yeah, the albums are just a placeholder, right?
Albums are just a way to organize
They're
things. They're not
pointers.
originals.
Yeah,
It's a pointer to the originals.
right. But I can
Okay,
have
so-
a folder of, so I can have a folder of travel and have various, vacations and things within that folder.
Yeah, you should be able to have,
And can I,
like Crete, 1998, and Cyprus, 2001, and South Africa, 2003, whatever,
yeah, but
or
if I
organize
want
it
to
any way you
have,
want. Or you
if
may
I
want to have
wanna
a
have-
folder called South Africa, and then you can go to Lesotho land, you can go to, and have different albums for different parts of South Africa.
so, okay, so you're saying you can have
You
a
can have
folder of just South Africa?
Just a
and-
folder, and then you can have albums inside that.
Hey, guys, you need to get your
Yeah.
terminology right. There's no such thing as folders in
Oh,
photos.
sorry. I told you I'm not a picture guy.
Everything is an album. And then
No.
So you can,
there's
No.
sub-albums inside the albums.
Oh, okay,
No.
so you can do sub albums, good.
There are
Okay,
folders
so
for all the
moving-
albums.
Moving
Okay,
along to,
so what about smart,
that's the next
albums? Do
question.
they have smart
Look
albums?
at your screen, Carol. Look at the screen. We've got different questions.
No,
here.
that's, okay. You got
Okay.
mailboxes and albums. Are they pretty similar? The way they work?
No,
Same-
albums are
the
for
same-
pictures.
Smart mailboxes in Apple Mail and smart albums and photos are the same concept. They're basically saved searches. So you can say, if this album contains the name birthday, then it just, if the name of any of your pictures have birthday in them or albums, then they all show up in there automatically.
So you have to name all your photos.
You have to have criteria name. Yeah, you have to. I would suggest, I have 25,000 photos on my computer, and not one of them has the name that the camera gave it, like image 0003. They all have a name that means something and a date. And you need to get in the habit of doing that. As soon as the pictures hit your computer, you name them. Otherwise, if they all have just numbers, how is it going to figure out what they are?
Is part of the metadata the date? Could I just
You can do
file them
criteria
according
by
to date?
date. Yes, you could say smart folder. If this image date is 1999, then put it in the 1999 folder.
Okay.
No folders in pictures, John.
Well, in mail, there are folders.
Yes, right. I'm just pulling your leg.
Actually,
Well,
in
you-
mail, there are mailboxes.
Yeah.
And there
But
we
I have
another
folders,
question
too.
here as to what is a smart mailbox? And a smart mailbox is simply set up as such so that you could say anything that contains Fuller Brush will go into the Fuller Brush smart mailbox. And you just set it up with a rule like that. Or anything that says Rick Calacura goes into a Rick Calacura smart mailbox.
Okay.
Now, as I understand it, though, you have over 300 mailboxes, but they're not smart, right? So you
That's
just
right.
drag the mail into those.
Yes.
Yeah. See, what Carol has described to me in the past is that she has 300 different mail boxes.
Maybe not that many.
Okay. She has multiple mail boxes, none of which are smart. And so she manages them by just dragging the mail into those different boxes. And I think you could easily set up a smart mailbox for each one of those people. Are they all different names?
Yes.
So yeah, just
Some
like,
of them, are husband and wife. They have slightly different names, but I was
okay,
playing
so
around
they would
with
be in the
this.
same mailbox? Would they be in the
Yes.
same mailbox? So just
Yes.
use their last name and automatically it'll move anything from them into the smart mailbox.
Oh, you can add rules.
Okay.
You can say
Right.
if the name is this, go to this mailbox,
Right.
and then you hit the plus button and add another rule that it modifies it further.
Well, here's the thing about
Right.
mailboxes. You can have lots of smart mailboxes, but they won't move the mail out of your inbox like you do. When you drag it to another folder, it goes out of the inbox and it stays in that folder. A smart mailbox is just a search. So you still have all the mail in your inbox. If the goal is to reduce your inbox, that doesn't really accomplish that.
Oh. Oh, I see. Yeah, I'd end up with 39,000 emails in my inbox.
Then you might want to think about archiving.
And you got a problem.
Yeah.
Well,
Right?
how would archiving help this?
So why do you, if you're moving things into all these other mailboxes, how do you have 39,000 still in your inbox?
I don't. I mean, I've been, highlighting them and dragging them,
Okay.
but I do have a question about I tried a smart mailbox and I named it for the mom of my student. And all of the mail from my inbox that was from her went into this smart mailbox.
Yeah.
Now, I
But
also,
it's still in the inbox. It didn't
Yeah,
move it to the
but
smart Smart mailboxes don't
I-
move anything. It's just a saved search.
yeah,
all it
that's
is.
not going to help me very much. But what I'm trying to say is, I'd like to have all of the emails that I sent to her in that mailbox also. And I
That's
couldn't
easy.
figure out
Easy
how to do
peasy.
that.
In the smart mailbox, you say if it's from this person or if it's to this person, and then it will show both of them.
Ah,
Yep. Okay, we're gonna run
You
out
sure
of
about
time and we
that?
got more questions.
okay,
Okay? Here's
okay,
one.
thank you.
Often when I read an email on my phone, which is 6 years old, the message then disappears. Why? And how can I stop that from happening?
That's an old message from last week.
Emails.
Did we take care of it last week?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. it was
Yes.
answered
Next,
last week.
okay? Next, what is Google Voice? Does it cost anything? Does it provide free long distance? Do I have to use the 925 area code or can I use another area code? And if I get a Google Voice number, where will it ring? And can I call internationally? Yes, no, yes, no. At any phone you own, and yes, for a charge. Yeah, the Google Voice is a nice thing from Google that currently is free. And I have a Google Voice number. I know John's got a Google Voice number. When somebody calls me on my, I call it G Voice, on my G Voice number, it rings all of my phones. It rings every phone in the house and my cell phone. And when I pick up the phone, it'll say that you have a call from Google, push, I think it says push any key to accept the call. And it's really neat. You can call anywhere you want. You can pick any area code you want. Suppose you have a little business that you do in Cleveland, Ohio. Would somebody please mute? So if you have a little business in Cleveland, Ohio, you can pick up a Google Voice number out of Cleveland, Ohio in that area code. And when they call, it'll ring here at 925. Really a very nice system, and there is no charge for it. Now, international calling is available, but there is a charge. I have friends in Britain that I talk to regularly, and the cost is not prohibitive. It's 1 cent per minute. I put in $10 a couple of years ago, and I think I'm down to about $7 now. So it's, yeah, you can stay on the phone as long as you want. And it is really, really very good. Did I answer your question adequately, Tracy?
Tracy, you're muted now. Press the space bar to talk.
Or press the mute button in the bottom left to permanently unmute yourselves.
Sorry.
Yep.
Now I lost my video. What I'm saying is it's fairly intuitive, correct, to get it going.
Pretty much.
It looks like it. That's what I need because my mother-in-law has moved to a place where she doesn't have free long distance, and I want her to be able to make a local call and make it. She can call
Oh,
me.
get her.
You
Get
get
her a
a,
G Voice number.
yeah,
Does she have an iPhone?
No, she's dumb. She just has a landline, so she can call in town and it'll
Okay.
then
So
come to
then
me.
you
And
get-
no computer.
you get a Google Voice number in the prefix that's local to her. It would be a local call to her, and then you have that ring your house and your cell phone if you want or whatever.
And that's the phones you select which phones you want to be linked to that.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, because there's a half a dozen phones in her town that I can use. So thank you.
can search for the prefix. It's a local call to her.
Well, I can search
then
for the town in Greenville, North Carolina. And like I said,
I
half a
don't know if
dozen-
you can do it by
Not-
town. I think you got to, they give you a list of numbers.
Yeah, area codes.
Not only area code, the prefix. It's got to be a local prefix toll-free call to her. Like
Oh, yeah.
Martinez 335 is a Martinez prefix. That's what I have.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll double search on the prefix as well
You
as.
got to make sure the prefix you get is a local call. The other thing you can do is you can call her. If you get a Google Voice number, you can use it to call her for free. But you
Okay.
already
You
have
have-
free long distance
Yeah.
anyway.
And well, I use my cell, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tracy, don't you have Comcast for your phone service?
No,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
still on AT&T Pac Bell.
Oh,
You
okay.
can also get, we have at the DVMUG office, I can't remember the name of it, it's OBI or something. It's a little box, $50. You buy it once, you plug it into your internet with an Ethernet cable and plug in any phone you want, your regular phone. And it makes calls. You pick it up and you dial out, and it uses the Google Voice service over the internet to make the free calls. And also that phone will ring if they call that number, that rings directly. So it acts as a regular phone. One time $50 box, and it works great.
Yeah, our office at the club office is using that.
Thank
The only
you.
tricky, you got to, when you pick up the phone, you always have to dial the area code, even if it's 925. Because it's
You
an
may
internet,
wanna-
it don't know.
You
But
may
that's
want to
coming, that's coming soon anyway to everybody.
you may want to consider thinking about the Comcast phone service. They charge me $10 a month and I get free long distance anywhere in the US, anywhere in any of its possessions. I can call Guam, anywhere in Mexico, anywhere in Canada.
I think
And
they're lovely.
also, guys, mute.
Somebody
And
needs to mute.
And they also throw in China and India, so you can call your great aunt Tilly who's living in Bombay if you want. But
Thank
they charge me $10 a month flat, which is a pretty good deal because I'll bet you're paying a lot more than that for copper.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. So moving right along, do we have any other questions and answers before we get started?
I have a quick question. Last week, I believe it was you that mentioned on the Apple Pencil, the knockoffs, and I couldn't remember where you said to look it up.
Oh, iMore. iMore did an
iMore.
extensive review.
Great. Thank you.
IMORE.
Yeah, I know it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they did a review a year or so ago. In fact, I think I did that one when you were at the senior center, or maybe you weren't there that day.
Yeah.
But I think I did about 10 or so of those pencils. Some of them are no good. Some
Yeah,
of them
I
are
know.
pretty good. The Logitech has a good reputation.
Yeah, I
But of
got one
course-
of those. I got it and I sent it back. I didn't like it at all. It was cheap and it didn't have it didn't come with the cord to plug it in, and I didn't have the right adapter. I sent it right
Ah.
back. I didn't like it.
Yeah. Well, the beauty of the Apple, of course, is that it
Right,
just
I
holds
know.
on magnetically, charges up that way,
Yeah,
but it's expensive. It's
Yeah.
darn expensive.
yeah.
Well, let's take a look at some tips and tricks that Gary has for us this week. Incidentally, for those of you who do not come to Tuesdays, when you see this at the on YouTube, or if while it's playing, you want to write down the URL so that you can watch it again, because he's fast. I always put the URL down at the bottom of the screen here. I don't know if you can see my arrow moving back and forth or not. Can you see it? I guess not. So anyway, it's down at the bottom of the screen in white text on all videos. Here we go.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Here are 20 tips and tricks for using your Mac. MacMost is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MacMost.com/Patreon. There you can read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So let's start with the most basic tip. If you want to know the name of your Mac, the exact name of the model, go to the Apple menu, then About This Mac. Then look for this line. It will be a name like MacBook Pro or iMac, and then in parentheses a year. Apple likes to put early, mid, or late before the year. This exact line will tell anybody which model you've got. Very important when trying to get support or asking questions. Now on your desktop you may be used to seeing hard drives shown here as icons, but they're not really that useful. Very rarely do you need to go to the top level of your hard drive. So to stop your desktop from showing these, go to Finder, Preferences. Under General, turn off these checkboxes here. And now those items will no longer be represented on your desktop, but you can still get to them in the Go menu by going to the computer level. And then you'll see them in the Finder like this. Now when you're looking at files in the Finder, you can double click to open one. But if you want to open a file in a specific application, just control click on it and then choose Open With. It will show you all the applications that can handle that type of file, and you can choose which one to open up. The default's at the top, but you can choose another one instead. Now when you have multiple windows open, you can click to drag one, but it's going to bring it to the top. If you want to keep the window in the layer it is, but still move it, hold the Command key down and then drag, and then the window will stay behind other windows as you move it. Now this green button here at the top left corner of any window will take you to full screen for that window. If you hold the Option key down, it will zoom, but that doesn't always make the window fill the space. To actually get it to fill the screen, you want to go to any corner, hold the Option key down and double click. Most of the commands you need to work in whatever app you're using can be found in the various menus in the menu bar. But sometimes there are hidden commands and you can reveal those with the Option key. Watch all of the different items in this menu as I press the Option key and hold it down, and you can see a few of them change to alternative commands. If you don't know where a menu command is, you could find it using the Help menu. So for instance, Format, Font, and then Baseline has superscript. But it's hard to remember where that's where it is. So instead just go to Help and type. And you'll see the first items here are menu items. And it'll show you where it is, but you could actually just choose this item here instead of going to that menu. Now when you want to search for files, you may be tempted to use Spotlight. Command Space brings up the Spotlight search bar, but this will give you all sorts of results including web pages, email, fonts, all sorts of things. If you know what you want is a file, instead in the Finder use Search Here or Command F and search for the file in a Finder window. This will only give you files as results. So the Finder has all sorts of options in view for sorting and grouping your files. But if you go to your Applications folder, there's a special grouping option not available in other places. Go to View and then use Groups. And then once you do that, View Group By, and there's one called Application Category. And now all of your apps are organized into different categories. The most basic way to move files around on your Mac is to drag and drop them. So you can drag a file into a folder, for instance. But if it's hard to drag and drop while you search for the destination, you can instead do Command C for copy and then go to another destination and then do Command V for paste. And that will actually make a copy of that file in the new location. Hold the Option key down and Option Command V changes to move. So now I can move that file here without having to drag and drop it at all. Many years ago apps allowed you to choose File, Save As to save a new copy of the current document as a new file. It's not there anymore. You can use Duplicate for something similar. But if you use the Option key like I showed before, you'll find that Duplicate changes to Save As. Save As is actually available in almost all apps. You just have to hold the Option key down to access it. On a Mac you can create a PDF out of almost anything. Any document you're working on in any application or a web page that you're looking at. If you can print it, you can create a PDF. If you go to File, Print, you'll see a PDF button right here. Click on that and you can save as PDF, or sometimes it's easier to open in Preview and then save the PDF from Preview if you like what you see. If you have multiple windows open in an app, you can switch between them with a keyboard shortcut. You may know Command Tab switches between apps, but Command and the backtick or tilde key on American keyboards, it's just above Tab. That will switch between all the windows in the current application. In System Preferences, there's something called Hot Corners, but you won't find it here in the main System Preferences listing. You have to go to Mission Control and then there's a button for it. And you could set a corner to do something. So for instance, you could make the lower right hand corner put the display to sleep. So now in order to sleep you don't even need a keyboard shortcut or anything. You could just move the cursor down to the bottom right hand corner and your Mac will go to sleep. And you could also hold a modifier key down like say Command, and you would need to do Command and move the cursor to that corner for it to work. Emoji and special characters are fun to use whether you're text messaging, sending email, or just want to have them in a document. You can actually type them anywhere on your Mac really easily. All you need to do is use the keyboard shortcut Control Command Space, and it brings up this special character viewer here, and it has search. So you just type something to search for and it will come up with results, and it will make it much easier to find what you want. And you can also autocomplete on a Mac. This functionality has actually been around for a long time, but few people use it. You can start typing a word and then you can simply hit spacebar to autocomplete with what's there. Or you can use F5 and it will bring up a list of different words that begin with those letters. You may have to hit the FN key and F5 depending upon your settings. In some situations the escape key will work as well to bring up those choices. Do you ever accidentally hit the caps lock key? There's really no good use for a caps lock key today, so you might as well just disable it. You can do that in System Preferences under Keyboard, and then go to Keyboard and then Modifier Keys, Caps Lock key, and set it to No Action. Now if you copy and paste on your Mac, whether it's from one of your documents to another document, or maybe you're copying and pasting something from the web, if you paste it in, it's going to use the font and styling of whatever it is you copied. If you'd rather use the font and styling that's there in your document, notice that if you go to Paste, there's Paste and Match Style right under it. Option Shift Command V. Do that and you could see it kind of throws away the formatting and uses the formatting in the document at that position. And that's available in lots of other apps as well, but just check in the Edit menu to see what it's called and what the keyboard shortcut is. Now it's easy to search for information on the web, but sometimes you're faced with an entire page of information and the bit that you want is hard to find. There's so much text. You can search inside of a page with Command F. And it brings up this little search field here. You can change it from contains to begins with if you want. And you can search for something. It'll tell you how many matches there are and even let you use the back and forward arrows to go through the page to find all those instances of that text. Now to delete a file you can select it and then do File and then Move to Trash, or just move it to the trash yourself, and it will sit in the trash until you empty the trash. If you'd rather skip the trash and delete it immediately, if you go to Move to Trash but hold the Option key down, so Option Command Delete instead of just Command Delete, it changes to Delete Immediately and the file will skip the trash and immediately be deleted. Of course use this with caution. So here's a bonus one. See the time in the upper right hand corner? In Big Sur this acts as a way to turn on and off Do Not Disturb. You can go to Control Center and use this button here, but if you simply Option click you can see it gets grayed out. That's an indicator that Do Not Disturb is on. Option click again and it turns off Do Not Disturb. It's now the regular color, so Do Not Disturb is turned off. And okay, here's one more bonus one. I often hear people talking about how songs, when you play them in the music app, some are louder than others. There's actually a feature that's been around forever that allows you to have all your songs played at approximately the same volume, no matter what the recording is like. Just go in the music app.
It's like we lost that one.
We lost it. Let's see if I can go back. Go up one. Nope. I can't do that.
Hi, this is Gary.
Oh, stop. Let's quit that for a minute. Go back.
It was almost to the end. That was a
It
bonus.
was, yeah. I can take it back, I think.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com.
I think we were about there.
You want, and you can search for something. It'll tell you how many matches there are and even let you use the back. Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Tell you how many matches there are and even let you use the back and forward arrows to go through the page to find all those instances of that text. Now to delete a file you can select it and then do File and then Move to Trash, or just move it to the trash yourself, and it will sit in the trash until you empty the trash. If you'd rather skip the trash and delete it immediately, if you go to Move to Trash but hold the Option key down, so Option Command Delete instead of just Command Delete, it changes to Delete Immediately and the file will skip the trash and immediately be deleted. Of course use this with caution. So here's a bonus one. See the time in the upper right hand corner? In Big Sur, this acts as a way to turn on and off Do Not Disturb. You can go to Control Center and use this button here. But if you simply Option click, you can see it gets grayed out. That's an indicator that Do Not Disturb is on. Option click again and it turns off Do Not Disturb. It's now the regular color, so Do Not Disturb is turned off. And okay, here's one more bonus one. I often hear people talking about how songs, when you play them in the music app, some are louder than others. There's actually a feature that's been around forever that allows you to have all your songs played at approximately the same volume, no matter what the recording is like. Just go in the music app to Music, Preferences, and from there go to Playback, and it's called Sound Check. Turn that on and now we'll even out the volume levels as you go from song to song. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching.
I personally don't agree with some of the stuff that he said. I use the caps lock key occasionally. I don't find it useless. And also I always display all the drives so that I know what my machine is doing. I'm sure some people agree with him, but I do not agree with him on that one. Others may have different feelings about it. Any questions about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why doesn't Apple put, okay, the old typewriters, when you hit the cap lock button and then you type and then you forget to release it, if you hit the cap, it releases it. You know what I mean? Why doesn't Apple do that?
I remember on the old typewriter that there was a lock. If you hit caps lock, it would lock. And then if you wanted to disable it, you click it again, which is what we do on
my computers have my computers have a caps lock. I tap it, it stays on until I tap it again and it goes off. The little green light on the keyboard comes on when it's locked.
Well, I actually use it all the time when you have to type an alphanumeric password that has capital letters and numbers. If you press caps lock, you get the cap numbers and letters and you get the numbers. So you don't have to keep fussing with the shift key.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you using an Apple keyboard, Carol?
Yes.
And
what I'm asking is, if you have the cap locks on and you forgot that it's on, and then you hit the shift, why doesn't it just release like it did on the old?
Well, they're not linked. And I don't think all typewriters did that, as I recall. I know on the electric typewriters, the IBM Selectric would do that, but on the old manual typewriters, you had to hit the caps lock key again to disengage it.
I got a question.
Not on mine.
It would be a key mapping problem to do that on a computer.
You need the shift key to make many characters. So if you turned off the caps lock key every time you press down the shift key, you wind up with almost about a problem.
It's pretty much an engineering nightmare. So no.
Thank you.
Sorry, you're outvoted.
That's okay.
Ken is waving his hand.
Okay, yeah, I can't see everybody, so help me there, guys. I only see 4 or 5.
I have a question about Big Sur. I installed Big Sur on an external drive a while back to check it out, and I got it installed, and it'll boot up under there, but it takes forever to boot up. And when I'm on there under Big Sur on this relatively new iMac that Ann set up for me, it runs really slow.
Sure.
Big Sur.
That's to be expected on an external drive.
You don't have an SSD.
Well, the external one that's on, I think, might be an SSD. The portable, it's a portable small drive.
That does not make it an SSD.
No.
That makes it a slow 2.5 inch spinning hard drive, unless you specified that it was an SSD and built it,
No, I did.
Even so, even if you had an SSD, you're constricted by a 1/2-inch garden hose that's connecting them together. So you can't go any faster than USB.
Newer systems are optimized for SSDs. So as you advance past Mojave, you get towards Catalina and Big Sur, a spinning hard drive becomes slower.
Oh, okay.
It's an operating system advancement issue.
How is this external connected to your computer? Is it USB 2, USB 3?
Well, if it's an SSD, it's probably USB 3.
Yeah.
Well, his computer has to have USB 3 also.
I think it's got the big connector, so it's probably 2.
Then if you have a spinning hard drive with USB 2, Big Sur is going to be painful to boot off that external. It's going to be really slow.
It does. I just wanted to check out compatibility with it and stuff, and it generally is compatible, but it's just really slow. So I'm back on Catalina, running off the internal hard drive, which is a hybrid drive.
Well, it's a fusion drive.
Fusion drive. Yeah.
You may want to make an appointment at.
The fusion drive is hocus pocus. It's an illusion. It makes it appear to be faster when it starts up because your system's on there. But if you got a lot of files, as soon as you go to run some files, it uses the hard drive and it's slow.
You may want to consider making an appointment at the clinic in the future and have us transplant your into your computer an nice SSD so you can see some speed.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
We did an old machine last Saturday for Roger, and that thing starts up in like 12 seconds now, and it used to be pitifully slow. And his was a 2011 or 2012 iMac.
That's an older one, yeah. Well, this is a 2019, this one.
Oh, definitely.
You bought that thing. That's the last of the spinning drives.
It's
last year, Apple upgraded the iMacs to SSDs. So you have a 1 terabyte spinning drive in that.
There was an SSD option at this time too, but it was very expensive.
It was Apple's SSDs are very expensive.
It was larger than I needed, and it was very expensive.
Yeah.
So
I got pick up an SSD now for a very good price.
I just ordered one from Amazon, 500 for $62.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. They're pretty cheap.
What a change, yeah.
And we're set up. You haven't been up to date with us, but we've got drive enclosures. You can order the SSD. I will bring the drive enclosure to your house, put the new drive in it, and start setting up the cloning so that when you come to the clinic, all you have to do is bring the machine in, we'll crack it open, take out the old drive and put in the new clone.
Good idea.
And we do that before the appointment. So
at this point, nobody should have a spinning drive on their internal computer that they use every day. It's just not, to me, it's non-functional.
Yeah, I think Ann had to reset it for me once already because it got kind of messed up. And she reset it back to the original setting because it got separated somehow. The 2 drives in there got separated.
Oh,
we already have.
There's a command to refuse it. That makes them it has a very small 128 gig SSD, and then the rest 1 terabyte spinning drive. So if you get info, it says it's a 1.1 terabyte.
So,
if you decide you want to do this, we have one appointment left for August for the clinic. So
you just have to know how much space you actually are using on that internal to know what size of the SSD you need.
Oh, that's true. I'd have to check.
Rick asks that question when people call him. He, goes through that and prepares you. And
you don't get anything less than a 256 these days. It doesn't. They still have 128s, but 256 is almost the same price. Those are about $40. So the 500 today was about $62.
I think this is with the spinning drive. I think it's a 1 gig, I think. Altogether.
All,
Terabyte, you mean.
all iMacs for the last 10 years have had 1 terabyte drives though.
Or terabyte. Is it terabyte then?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
1 terabyte.
So if you get a terabyte SSD to put in your, what does that cost?
I'd have to look it up. It's
It's
more
a
like
little bit more. The price.
it's more like 140, 50.
Well, that's not bad then either,
No, they're not bad at all.
considering what it used to cost. But isn't the next thing I should do is actually install Big Sur on my main drive?
No,
You know, I do that.
because if you're running an older system, it'll make it possible for us to do a good clone that'll be startup.
Okay. Yeah, because Catalina is working great as it is.
If you install Big Sur, it'll just get slower probably.
Okay.
Yeah, don't do it.
So the next move would be to buy a, where did you recommend buying the drive?
I buy them off of Amazon. They ship in 2 days.
Right,
Now,
yeah,
do you have a 27-inch or a 24-inch?
24
A
inch,
21-inch rather.
21 and a half, or 21, yeah, 21, uh-huh.
Okay, well, I would recommend you call OWC and find out if you need, I don't think on a 2019.
You don't need
you're gonna
anything.
need
We have the
Just a
strips.
mounting adapter.
No, 21s don't have any adapters or thermal sensors, or just need the drive and the glue strips. Which I
So
have
there's
glue
a two-
strips at the office.
There's a 2.5-inch drive in that machine, John?
Yep, that's why it's so damn slow.
Yeah, okay.
A
Very good.
5400 RPM laptop drive in those 21-inch iMacs.
Hmm.
They're pathetic.
Okay, moving along.
Mhm.
How to fix these 10 Finder annoyances. Gary again.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Today, let me show you 10 Mac Finder annoyances and how to fix them. MacMost is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MacMost.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So first, let's start with the desktop. A lot of people complain that a lot of desktop space is taken up by showing icons like the hard drive, external drives, and other connected network drives and things like that. But you don't have to show any of these on there. As a matter of fact, I don't have any hard drive shown on my desktop at all. To get rid of these, in the Finder, go to Finder, Preferences, and then under General, look for Show These Items on the Desktop. And you can turn all of these off. That's all I have it set. So anything on my desktop is a file or folder that I've specifically put there. Otherwise the desktop is empty. Now when you create a new Finder window, it'll go to a default location. So I'll close this Finder window here and do File, New Finder Window, and you can see here it goes to my Recents folder. If this isn't exactly where you want to go, it can be annoying. And if it's someplace you never want to go, like perhaps your Recents folder, then it's always annoying. So let's go to Finder Preferences to fix this. Under General here you have New Finder Window Show, and you could set it to anything that you want. So instead of Recents, you could pick, say, the top computer level, or your hard drive, or your user folder, desktop, documents, or use Other and select any folder or location that you want. So for instance, in iCloud Drive, I could select my Documents folder and then maybe a specific folder that I want. Choose this, and now when I open a new Finder window, it will start there. Another annoyance can be your sidebar here. It can have lots of things in it that you don't necessarily need. So go to Finder, Preferences, and go to Sidebar. And there are a lot of default items that you could turn on or off. So for instance, you can get rid of Recents. You can get rid of AirDrop. You can get rid of downloads, movies, music, pictures, your home folder. You can get rid of all of these things. They're easy to get to anyway. In the Finder you can just use the Go menu, and most of these items are right here. They even have keyboard shortcuts. So you can still get to them pretty easily without having them clutter up the sidebar. Also near the bottom of this list here under Locations there are a lot of things that you might not want to see. For instance, you may not want to see external drives, inserted optical media, cloud storage, other computers on your network. You can get rid of all of these things. As a matter of fact, if you get rid of everything under Locations, that whole category just goes away. And then anything else that you've got in here, maybe something you've added on your own, you can get rid of by dragging away, and as soon as you see the X there you can release it and it will disappear from the sidebar. You can easily add something back by just dragging it into the sidebar. Now notice here some of these file names have extensions and others don't. If you'd rather always see extensions, you can turn that on in Finder Preferences under Advanced. the first checkbox here is show all file name extensions. And by turning it on you can see now it's there for all files. Or on the other hand, if you rather have it off, turn it off. Note that when you create a file name, if you add the extension when you're typing the file name, it will appear there. And you can use Command I to bring up the info window. And here is where you can hide the extension for one where you've set it to be on. So you can switch it on or off individually per file, but any file that you haven't set that for, that's going to obey that universal setting in Finder Preferences. Now under Finder Preferences in Advanced, there's also a set of warnings that you can turn off. There's show warning before changing an extension, show warning before removing something from iCloud Drive, and show warning before emptying the trash. If one or more of these is an annoyance to you, you can switch them off. Now when you start a search in the Finder, either using the icon here or Command F, it's going to search in a specific location. It may start in this Mac, all your files, or it may start in a certain folder. The default for where it starts can be annoying if it's not where you want. You can set this in Finder Preferences in Advanced. There's when performing a search you could have it set to the current folder, which is probably your best option. But you could also have it go to the previous search scope or always start on this Mac. Any one of those three though, when you set it, you have to get used to looking here to make sure it's where you want it to be before you start performing your search. There's no good answer as your Mac can't really read your mind, figure out where you want to search. The only real solution is to always learn to go where you want to start the search first and then do the search and have it set to use the current location. Now you don't always see all the files that are in a folder. There are hidden files. Usually they're hidden for a reason. They're not something you would normally want to access. This can be annoying though when you do want to access that file or folder, or conversely it can be annoying when you see these invisible files, you're not sure how you ended up being able to see them and you want to get rid of them. Well, the keyboard shortcut to show or hide hidden files is Command Shift and period. So you can see here it's showing me the hidden files in my home folder. This could be useful if I want to see my library folder, for instance. But if you accidentally turn this on, it can be really annoying if you don't know how to turn it off. Just Command Shift period turns it off. Now when you're in list view you've got columns here at the top, and I hear a lot of people complain that it's annoying that the columns either aren't the right size for them, or they're not showing the right information that they want to see, or maybe they're not in the right order. After all, if you shrink this window you can easily cut off some of these columns. Well, this is all customizable. You can grab the line between any one of these columns and change the size for the column. You can click on a column and drag it left or right to reposition it. So you can take the column that's more important to you and move that further to the left. You can also change which columns are there. You can do this a few different ways, but the quickest way is to control click, two-finger click on the trackpad or right click on the mouse on any one of these columns here, and then you can select which columns to show or hide. So if I want to have date last opened instead of date modified, I can add date last opened, I can hide date modified, and I can move this here to the left since it's the most important one for me. And then of course you can sort by any of these by clicking on the column to sort. Pay attention to the arrow here for the direction. Click again and it changes the direction. So this is actually one of the annoyances I hear about the most. You get a preview area here to the right side of the Finder. This can appear here in list view. It can appear in icon view. It's very common to appear in column view where it's on by default. While I find this to be a very handy feature, a lot of people end up seeing it and don't realize how they turned it on and now they want to turn it off. It's just here under view and then it's show or hide preview or Shift Command P. It will show or hide that in any Finder view. A common annoyance that even I deal with sometimes is that when you select a file and then use Command I or File Get Info, it brings up the info window here. Let's move that over here to the right. Now let's say I want to select this file. Notice that the info window is still showing the info for the first file. But I want it to follow me around. When I select another file, I want to see info for that file. So to do that, instead of the info window, when you go to File Get Info, hold the Option key down and you'll see that Command Option I is Show Inspector. The inspector looks a lot like the info window, except it will change to show the info for whatever's selected. And as a bonus, if you select multiple files, it will actually combine those and show combined information, like the total size for all of those files. Now here's a bonus one. I always like it to keep a clean desktop and not have files like this cluttering the desktop. So to that end, I rarely have files on the desktop, but I know other people work in different ways and sometimes you have a lot of files on the desktop. If you need to clean this off really quickly, like maybe to do a presentation, you would have to take the time to organize your files, move them all to the proper folders in your Documents folder or wherever you want to have them, which can be time consuming. If you're crunched for time, there is a way to get rid of the files here on the desktop. Remember, the desktop is just a regular folder. If in the Finder here I go to Desktop, I see my desktop folder. It's the same files that are here. So it's just two ways of looking at the same location. But if I'd rather only have these files in the desktop folder in a Finder window and not have them actually rendered here on the desktop, I could do that using a hidden setting. You've got to go to Terminal and then use a special command. This will change the default for the Finder for a property called Create Desktop. And it's going to set it to the Boolean value of false. And then in order to enact it, you've got to restart the Finder. So Kill All Finder will do that. Now notice what happens is the desktop is no longer rendered using the icons. I still see that those files are actually on the desktop. So the files are still there. They haven't moved. Just the desktop is no longer showing those files. So this could be handy in an emergency situation, although you certainly don't want to use this normally. As it can get confusing, you can think you've got an empty desktop and you actually have all these files in your desktop folder. To turn this off, just use the same command, but true instead of false. Restart the Finder again, and now it's rendered with those files on the desktop again. Once again, they haven't moved. It's just
I'm sorry that did it again, but we were at the end, so I apologize for that. But you got it. I don't like doing that kind of stuff because it really can mess you up. And I don't recommend it, and he doesn't recommend you do it for general purposes because you can get into some trouble. Last week, I think it was last week, maybe the week before, Apple released a new MagSafe battery pack for the iPhone 13, and they charge about $100 for it. Well, 9 to 5 Mac, which is a place that I check out pretty frequently on the web, compared the Apple MagSafe battery with the Anker $50 battery. And they got some interesting examples there. You can see the illustration shows the Anker and the Apple. What are the benefits and the disadvantages? Well, the Apple has a widget that will work on the iPhone for any details that you might want about the battery. The Apple has 11.13 watt hours, 11 and 1/10 essentially. Maybe you call it 2/10 if you want, but I round it down because of the 3. And the Anker is 18.5 watt hours. Apple still uses USB-C to charge. I'm sorry, USB. I got that wrong. Uses Lightning. That's incorrect there. I have to edit that out. Uses Lightning to charge, while the Anker is more up to date using USB-C. So for half the charge with double the price, buy Apple. And I found that very, very interesting that that did that. That price was double for just about half that capacity. I think that's kind of disgraceful, but some people like the Apple stuff. But Anker is a very good company. So just saying. So let's talk about customizing the Apple News app. I know Ann likes the News app a lot, and a lot of people subscribe to it. So let's see what Gary says about it.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Let me show you how to customize the News app on your Mac to show you only the news you want. MacMost is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MacMost.com/Patreon. There you can read more about the Patreon campaign. Join us and get exclusive content and course discounts. So I think the News app on the Mac and also on the iPhone and iPad is a great way to read news articles, much better than looking at individual websites in a web browser. The News app aggregates news from different sources and displays them very nicely in a format where you can read them basically ad-free. But I hear some people complain they don't like the variety of news that the News app will show them. But you can customize this completely to your liking. You don't need to stick with the default set of news, which is going to be a mix of things like politics, technology, sports, and all sorts of different categories, some of which you may not want to read. So when you go into the News app, by default you're going to see just a general selection of news from a wide variety of sources. Now if you really want to start to customize it to have it show you news that it thinks you may like, you can do that by going to File and then Discover Channels. And you can start there by adding some of the sources you like. Once you do that, it will customize what you see based on those selections. And then when you're in an article, you can give thumbs up and thumbs down to further curate future stories that you'll see. But you can go much further than that, specifically stating the types of news or the news sources that you want to see. So to do that, just go to the search field here and type a search term. So let's say I just want to customize news to only show me science news. So I can search for science and then I could see in the search results here there's topics which will only show me news that's tagged as science. It'll come from various sources. I could also look at current stories that fit the search criteria here. So for instance, say I spot a story here from a publication. I can go in and look at that. I can specifically follow this publication. So if I go all the way to the bottom of this article here, you'll see more from and the name of the publication and a follow button. Click that and now that publication will appear under following. So let's go back and find more by going into the topic for science here, looking at some of the other things I see. So here's a publication and the same thing when I go to the bottom of this article here, even if it's not the specific article I'm interested in, I'll find follow and I can add that. Now following publications is going to tell news that you like those publications and you'll see more stories from them. So let's say now that you've added a bunch of publications that you're following. If you just want to see news from one publication, you can use this list right here just to view articles from that one publication. But if you want to change your Today view to only show the publications you're following, just go to News, Preferences, and select Restrict Stories in Today. This will restrict Today to only the publications you're following. So now I'm going to do Command R for refresh. It will refresh, sometimes it takes a few tries, and only show me stories from the publications I follow. So it helps to have a lot of different ones that you're following here in order to fill this up with new material every day. In addition, you can restrict what's shown here on the left. If you don't want to see special coverage sections which change all the time, you can click here to collapse that. The suggestions, you can also collapse those as well. And even though you've restricted today to only the stories from sources you're following, you can go and search for other types of news. So if I want to see some local news here, I can search for Colorado and see other sources in the search results. To remove anything from here, you can swipe to the left to unfollow or control click and unfollow channel is there. One thing that you could do is simply forget about specific publications and instead add topics. So let me search for science and you can see in topics here I can just use the plus button, add it to what I'm following. Now if I go to Today and after it refreshes, I'm only going to see science news here. But you can see it comes from a variety of different sources. I'm not following any sources in particular, just this topic. And it's easy to experiment and change things, add sources, remove them, add topics and remove them, and get it to the point where it shows you news that you're interested in reading in a format that's much better than reading them on the web. And of course you get much more if you subscribe to Apple News Plus. But a lot of people are subscribed to Apple News Plus simply because they're using one of Apple's bundles. That would include several different services. So you may have Apple News Plus even if you're not specifically subscribing to it. I'm using the Apple One Premier bundle, which pays for itself in terms of the iCloud space and Apple TV Plus and Apple Music. But in addition to that, for really nothing extra, I get Apple Arcade and Apple News Plus. So there are even more sources that I could read in the Apple News apps on my Mac, iPhone, and iPad. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching.
Well, that's a consideration that you might have to work with.
Unfinished business.
That's a consideration that you might want to think about when you are subscribing to the news. You do get 2 terabytes of storage, and that's quite useful. That's very useful for you for the cloud, and your stuff is super safe while it's on the cloud. At least I believe it is. I don't think anybody's gonna argue with me about that. Is that? Yeah, okay. So last video, boy, we're running through these pretty fast. Normally we take more time. Last video we have is getting Apple names right, which is very helpful when you've got a service issue and you want to make sure you're saying apples when the guy is thinking apples instead of saying oranges when the guy wants apples. So here we go.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Today, let's talk about using the proper names for Apple products. MacMost is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MacMost.com/Patreon. There you can read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So anybody in tech support or that answers questions about Apple products like I do knows that a lot of people don't use the proper names when referring to Apple products. This can make it difficult sometimes to convey the issue that you're having or the problem you want to solve. Sometimes people are using older names for Apple products or using the name of an older product that's since been replaced. And other times people are just using slang instead of the proper product name. But using the right product name can really help when you're trying to communicate. Here's my first example. Sometimes people may say they have an Air or a Mac Air or even an Apple Air. But Air is a term used by Apple for several different products. So it helps to clearly state that you're using, say, a MacBook Air or an iPad Air. There is no product simply called the Mac Air. Another example is somebody may say they have a MacBook. And Apple actually did produce a MacBook just called a MacBook for a few years. Chances are that if you don't have an actual MacBook, you have a MacBook Pro or a MacBook Air. Now I may use the term MacBook, but when I do it, I'm referring to something about a MacBook, MacBook Pro, or MacBook Air. Something that could apply to all 3. Like for instance saying that when you close the lid on a MacBook it goes to sleep. In that case it doesn't matter which MacBook you have. But if you're asking for help for something, it's very useful to state that you have a MacBook Pro or MacBook Air rather than just saying MacBook. I've also seen some people just say that they've got a Pro when asked what type of Mac they have. And Apple uses the term Pro through a lot of different product lines. So it's helpful to really define what you have. Chances are you're probably talking about a MacBook Pro. But you may also have a Mac Pro, which is an expensive tower that Apple sells. Also, for a number of years Apple produced an iMac Pro. And Apple also uses this term in other lines. For instance, you can have an iPad Pro or even an iPhone 12 Pro. Less frequently I hear people talking about having an iPod now. Now Apple hasn't produced an actual iPod in many years. Chances are if you say you have an iPad now, you're actually talking about an iPod Touch. But it definitely helps to be clear because an iPod Touch is an iOS device similar to an iPhone. Whereas an iPod is a much older device with a very limited operating system. It basically just stores and plays back music. Now if you say you have an iPad, you may actually have an iPad. Apple does, of course, produce a model called just the iPad. But you may also have an iPad Pro, iPad Air, or iPad Mini. It helps to really talk about which one that you've got, especially now where iPad Pros have a very different processor and capabilities from the standard iPad and iPad Mini. Another one I hear often is somebody saying they have an iPhone SE. Now the SE is the lower end iPhone model. So if you say you have an iPhone SE, it's very possible that you're referring to the original iPhone SE, which is many years old now and it's very limited in what it can do compared to current iPhones. However, there is an iPhone SE 2. It's not called that. Apple actually contributes to this because they call both of them just the iPhone SE. But the original iPhone SE from several years ago and the iPhone SE that you could buy today are very different in terms of their capabilities. In general, when referring to iPhone or iPad models, it's important to state the exact model name, or if the model name doesn't have any specifics like the iPhone SE, talk about the year that it came out. Now here's one that's completely wrong. There is no product called the iWatch. Apple's never produced an iWatch. However, that was a rumored name for the Apple Watch from a long time ago. And of course there's the iPhone, so it makes sense to call it the iWatch. But Apple actually doesn't make an iWatch. It's called the Apple Watch. Another one I see is often people just say HomePod. But there are actually two different HomePods. There's the HomePod and HomePod Mini. Now Apple originally produced the HomePod, which is larger than the Mini, and they've since discontinued it. Now if you buy a HomePod, it's actually the HomePod Mini. But when referring to them, it's important to use the right name because they have different capabilities. Now this is very much misused in the press, especially because it's often mentioned that the HomePod has been discontinued. Of course, if people want to get a HomePod, they can get a HomePod Mini. It's a fairly new product and very much supported by Apple. So when you see a headline that says the HomePod's been discontinued or it's impossible to get a HomePod now, keep in mind the HomePod is the original product. The HomePod Mini is the one that you could easily get now from Apple's site. I often hear people misusing the name of Apple's earphones. Now, the original earphones, the ones that had an audio jack, people refer to them as simply earbuds. And earbuds is actually a generic name for earphones that fit into your ears and are wired and you connect them to a device. Apple then went to earpods, and earpods have a lightning connector on the end of them and they're a little more advanced than the old earbuds. AirPods, of course, are the wireless devices that are really popular now from Apple. Here's a big one. People will still use the term OS X or OS X sometimes. And Apple actually hasn't produced OS X in a while. They changed the name to Mac OS. If you've got an older version of Mac OS, it may have originally been referred to as OS X. And in that case, it's technically fine to refer to it. You can say OS X Sierra, for instance, and that is fine. That's correct. But if you say Mac OS Sierra, that's correct too, and it's a little clearer. Now iPhoto is the app that came with Macs for a long time that helped you manage your photos. And the name actually really stuck with people and people still use it. However, for years now, the name of the app that comes on your Mac is called Photos. iPhoto and Photos are different apps. Photos was created from the ground up. It wasn't simply a new version of iPhoto. A major difference, for instance, is that iPhoto had no iCloud capability, so you couldn't store your photos in the cloud. One of the best features of the Photos app. I still see people referring to Photos as iPhoto, and it's very confusing when you're trying to give somebody help, because when I see somebody say iPhoto, I immediately think they're using a much older version of macOS or they're still sticking with the old iPhoto app. And when trying to provide help and instructions, you really want to know which one it is people are using. Other examples of this are iCal and iBooks. These are previous names for apps that Apple has since replaced. They're now simply called Calendar or Books. Books is a little confusing because Apple often refers to the Books app as Apple Books. And sometimes Apple refers to the store inside of the Books app as the Apple Books Store or just the bookstore. So it's a little confusing there, but it's definitely not called iBooks. This is getting rarer, but sometimes you'll see people refer to iWork. iWork was a marketing term that referred to Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. They originally were sold on optical media as a single piece of software. You installed it and you got these 3 apps. But when Apple moved these to the App Store, they became individual apps and they're simply referred to as Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. To confuse things further, Apple still kept referring to them for a while as iWork or iWork apps, sometimes on their website or in support forums and things like that. But I find it's much better just to forget about the iWork name completely and talk about Pages, Numbers, or Keynote specifically. Another one here is people will refer to Final Cut as Final Cut 10 or Final Cut X or Final Cut Pro X, but the actual name of the app is simply Final Cut Pro. iTunes is a big one, and it's made more confusing by the fact that Apple used the word iTunes for a lot of different things. For instance, there was an app on the Mac called iTunes, but there was also the iTunes Store. Today, iTunes is still technically a term. Inside of the Music app, for instance, you can purchase music in the iTunes Store. But on the Mac, the apps are called simply Music, TV, Podcasts, and Books. These are the apps that have taken over all the different functions of the old iTunes app. So when talking about one of these, be sure to refer to it by name, like music. If you say iTunes, then immediately someone like me would think that you're using a much older version of macOS that still has the iTunes app. Related to that is the term Apple Music. Now this one is particularly confusing because people use Apple Music to refer to the app on their Mac, which is just called Music, not Apple Music, and also the service, the streaming service that's kind of like Spotify, where you can pay a subscription fee and stream any music that you want. So technically the app is just called Music and the streaming music service is called Apple Music. This term can lead to a lot of confusion, as I've had a lot of back and forth with somebody asking about Apple Music and I think they're talking about the streaming service and they're just talking about the app on their Mac and they're not using Apple Music at all. Apple News is another one. This is a little clearer, but remember that the app on your Mac is actually just called News. Apple News doesn't really apply to anything, but note that Apple News Plus is the subscription service for $5 a month where you can get all sorts of magazines in the News app for that one monthly fee. Apple TV is another one. Apple TV actually refers to the physical device, the one that you buy and hook up to a television. The app on your Mac is just called TV. So don't refer to that as Apple TV, else people will think you're talking about the actual device you connect to a television. Apple TV Plus is the service that you get for $5 a month that includes shows like Mythic Quest and Ted Lasso. iCloud's another term that's misused. iCloud refers to the entire service, which includes things like syncing up your contacts and calendars, using space for backups, tons of different things. But a lot of times people are talking about specifically iCloud Drive, which is the part of iCloud that lets you store files. So say if you have your documents and desktop folder in iCloud, you're actually saying they're in iCloud Drive, which is part of iCloud. In addition, this is going to get more confusing because Apple is adding the term iCloud Plus. Basically, iCloud is just going to be this generic term for the whole service. If you actually pay for extra storage, you have what's called iCloud Plus. This term is going to come into use with the new operating systems in the fall. So those are the most common misuses of Apple product names that I see from day to day, either in questions I get or on forums online. It may seem trivial to talk about the differences between terms like MacBook and MacBook Pro or iCal and Calendar, but if you're searching for information or trying to get help, being clear about these terms can really help you get the information that you want. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.
Okay, so we ran a little short on you guys tonight, but if you'd like, I could play that second video on the trip of the Apple trackers. I forget the name already. Or we can open up the meeting to general questions and answers, because I'm sure a lot of you've got questions and some of us may have answers. What's the pleasure?
There was a news article on the Google page today about an Apple's security update that they did really fast for everything. It was today.
Yesterday it came out.
Okay, what's that all about?
Well, it's they found an exploit or found a security hole that could be exploited. And so Apple wanted to put a cap on that right quick. So they released the update, which is 0.1, I think. I don't remember the number of it, but they came right out with it so that it would update your iOS devices and your Mac. Let me check and see what the update is on the Mac. It's 11.5.1. And on the iPhone, about, go to about.
That's
It is 14.7.1.
Okay.
So I do recommend that if you've got those, if you value your equipment, do those updates.
Okay. What was
now?
that?
There's another thing that came out just today too, that I thought everybody did this, but the NSA suggest, I think it was NSA, National Security Administration, suggested that to keep the bad guys out, that you reboot your iOS device at least once a week. In other words, shut it down with the little slider and then restart it. I'm not sure that once a week is sufficient, but if
I
you're,
never heard that.
yeah, it came out, it was on the news tonight even. Yeah. Let's see if I can find it. Let me see, can I get into the internet and still have the screen going? Let's see if I can. So I will do a search and say reboot iOS once a week for security. Yes, let me share the screen. Here it is. iPhone users do this simple thing every week. There's another one, USA Today. Turn off, turn on, the simple trick to stopping phone hackers. Let's open this one from Ziff Davisnet. Oh, come on here. iPhones especially fall into this category because people keep iPhones for longer than Android devices, or maybe because they get more updates, so suffer from slowdown more. I'm not sure about the reason, but iPhone users wanting tips on making their devices run faster outweigh their Android counterparts. That's not relevant.
So this is saying to make them faster, not for
Yeah,
security.
but the last paragraph goes into security. Let's find the other links here. This is from Mac Observer. Where's the article? At least once a week as a security measure. Not only does this clean the system's RAM and get it ready to do more work, it also helps protect against remote exploits by making it harder for hackers to keep control of your iPhone. Hacks don't survive reboots.
I would think it's more important that the people actually do the updates for iOS, which they probably aren't doing. And that reboots it when you do all those whatever iOS updates, it reboots.
That's true. That's quite true. And there's a lot of people who are a little bit resistant to some of these security updates, and I really don't know why. I mean, it's something that you really should do. I mean, golly, Apple puts them out there for us to benefit from, and let's allow ads. Quit. Let's go to read only. Let's click this off. Well, these guys, some of them locked down their website, something awful.
This is getting to be more common. You can't go to a website if you got an ad blocker on.
Yeah, let's go back here again. Where was it? It's probably this one. Let's go to read only. Usually you can do that, but you can't do it. So allow ads.
That's just telling you how to do it.
Yeah, I don't want to do that though, but I guess I will. Okay. Disable it. There you go. Come on. I hate this. I already did it. It's disabled. Okay. Disabled on this side, where they want to make sure.
Hit refresh the page.
Yeah, come on. That's crazy. That's my ad blocker. It's turned off. What more do they want? Oh, now I want to disable it. Well, this is one of those pages that just doesn't seem to care, so I don't care about them either. Phooey on them.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. So as a member of the Secretive Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Angus King has reason to worry about hackers. At a briefing by security staff this year, he said he got some advice on how to help keep his cell phone secure. Step 1, turn off phone. Step 2, turn back on. That's about it. Anyway, that was on the news. I think Leo Laporte was talking about it yesterday to the fellow who does the security podcast. And he recommended that very strongly. So there we go.
You know, you're talking about updates, and I'm surprised the members of my family, and I mean young people, you know, they won't do it. No, I'm not going to do it. It slows up my phone, or it slows it up. Or I have trouble every time I do it. I'm thinking, you're crazy.
Well, tell them it's not political and it's not a vaccine. Yes, they have nothing to be afraid of. That it will certainly help them in their daily operation.
Yeah.
All it takes is to be hacked once, and you can't imagine the travails that will come about if you get yourself hacked. If they get into your records and steal your checking account. And I would be really hurt if they did, because I have a pretty large expense every month that I have to pay, and so I keep my checking account pumped up pretty well. And boy, I couldn't afford to have somebody get in there and drain it. Also use two-factor authentication. It's a pain in the neck, I know, but use it.
Oh, you use that on your bank account then, the two-factor?
I use it.
Yes.
I turn it on everywhere.
Yes.
It's a pain in the ass, and it's a done deal. And
yeah,
there's too much hacking going on.
Okay.
Now, fortunately, on the phone, they use facial recognition, and that will suffice. And on my iPad, they use my thumbprint. And on my new MacBook Pro, it supposedly uses my thumbprint, but it's not really reliable on all apps. It's very reliable on 1Password, but it's not very reliable on some other features.
Anything to do with spending your money.
Yeah.
Amazon, eBay, your bank, all those logins need to be two-factor.
Yeah. You don't want to get a surprise and find a 65-inch OLED TV on your bill at the end of the month from Amazon.
What happens if you do? Does Amazon question it, or do they take it off?
I don't think Amazon would, but you'd have to go through your credit card company and contest it.
Yeah.
Now, I've had a couple of, but not because I was hacked, but I've had a couple of issues, and I'm very grateful for American Express. My goodness, the customer's always right with them, whereas Visa's a little more picky.
Yeah.
But American Express right now, okay, your money's back. So I'm pleased with that. So any other questions, or do you want to see that second video, the one about the trackers?
No.
But it's long.
No.
Okay, I don't have anything else.
Want to stop the recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
So goodbye, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. That ends the recording, but we can